Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. Do you like how I say it more excited now?
Yeah, very much so.
It's a podcast where we regurgitate half-remembered TED Talks as we try and make sense of an increasingly chaotic cognitive landscape. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
Let's talk about some TED Talks we half remember. So this week we're going to talk about system change versus personal change. So probably in the context of climate, but I think also poverty, capitalism, all that kind of thing. What kind of made you suggest this one, Ivanka?
Well, I've probably half watched some or half remembered some TED Talks or podcasts, but what brought it to the fore was having somebody staying with us for a couple of weeks who appreciates my knowledge of and general concern for the climate. And still, we had this random conversation at a ice cream stand where she refused to have her ice cream in a cornet, which can be eaten or composted, and insisted on having it in a pot with a plastic spoon. So I thought,
the plastic spoon is the institutional problem.
It is the institutional systemic problem that just needs to be eliminated. Also, quad bikes,
all right. For me, this is interesting just because of I think there's a lot of sort of fetishization of plastic straws and carrier bags and things, which we've been doing for decades now, and it's clearly not making a difference. And really it's, when you look at how 100 companies are responsible for most of the emissions, it's like it needs to go back to it needs to go to the institution.
Back to them.
It needs to be, and also just the institutional benefits. Just the council giving you recycling bags makes a big difference. Just making things convenient is much more effective than expecting everyone to kind of think about it all the time. That's the sort of thing we're going to talk about. So let's play music of intro. Music of intro. How's life, Ivanka?
Life is. I had a success this week.
Ooh.
I had a day where I was very sad and I couldn't really explain why I was sad. So we just had to accept that I was sad that day.
Right.
So I had a sad day, and then I went for a run.
Right.
And that helped. That helped me stop feeling so sad. And when I came back from my run, but that was only late afternoon that I managed to, start doing some self-help. But then my success this week was to find a sort of small holding / little farm where I bought some eggs and some potatoes, and they may well now become my ongoing vegetable supplier.
Finally.
Which is lovely. Finally. I have found, because I've been trying to, we have an old lady at the market here who obviously sells stuff she grows, and then we've got a market stall of people who are obviously resellers. But eggs, I've struggled to get good eggs, and I find it very dodgy. I look at the, when the packaging thing where it all just looks like happy chickens on you possibly don't. I don't know if you avoid eggs or don't eat them.
I do avoid eggs, but
you do avoid eggs. But they have those lovely cardboard things with happy chickens looking like they're next to a farmhouse.
Yeah.
And then you try and read the label, and it's very unclear how these chickens spent their days. So I went to meet some chickens. They seemed happy. They were okay with me having their eggs. And I met some people. Anyway, how are you, Michael?
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, I think I had to go to the doctor this week because everyone's worried that my fingers have gone a bit yellow, and I think I might have a tapeworm or something from the farmer's market food. I think I've ingested some sort of parasite. I might be all right. No, I've sort of thought after the kidney stone debacle last year, I should probably just try and get on top of it before anything bad happens. But yeah, my fingers are a bit yellow, so I had to have some blood taken yesterday on Wednesday, which is not my favourite thing. But you just have to just talk Just while it's happening, I'm just yammering,
after
trying to
that.
keep thinking of things to say while it's still going. Yeah, so yeah, when we do go to Italy, yeah, no, and so that's done. But yeah, we'll see what happens there. So maybe I've only got 2 weeks left to live. So this podcast will, we've got to get to 100, and then, but who knows? I'm sure I'm fine.
Then you're fine to die.
Just a mild bit of jaundice or something, maybe. So that's happened.
Do you still eat loads of mangoes for breakfast? Do they make you go yellow?
Well, I mean, if they hadn't so far, then I'd be surprised if they suddenly would start making me go yellow.
Yeah, but you might have reached mango yellowness saturation.
Mango saturation. It could have happened. So there's that. Also, I've been working on... I had a week off, and also then I've been working on my Apple development stuff. It is like when you're doing stuff for yourself, it's hard to make time to just sort of like mess about. Whereas if you know you're getting paid for a day, you do, you sort of can procrastinate a bit and not worry too much. But I'm sort of on that uncertain where some money's coming from thing at the moment. So it's all a bit like I'm just like working, 12 hours straight, just like trying to learn the new thing and just going, and I'm nowhere, I'm sort of behind on my YouTube video again. Anyway, I just feel like I'm yammering this morning. I was going to say, I did a good little, I've been talking to Xavier about Blank State sort of explainers, like, the Nicky K style explainers, and had fun doing a little prototype in Observable. So I made a little Monopoly simulator. So I thought it might be interesting to kind of simulate a Monopoly games so that we can like tinker with the parameters a bit and sort of, because I think interesting. Monopoly's interesting because everyone gets the same amount of money and still it's really brutal. But I just wanted to sort of do 100 players where like one gets a bit more money and just see how much that skews it, just to sort of demonstrate some of the shortcomings.
That's a good idea.
Capitalism. And it also came from wanting to maybe try. It was before we landed on actual Monopoly the game. It was like, I think the idea of monopolies is a problem at the moment. We have got some big monopolies, and what if you did limit the size of companies and simulated that to sort of show the difference it might make if it wasn't just Google, Apple, Facebook, which it is now.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm learning Italian in earnest, doing it every morning now.
Oh, really?
6 days in.
What form does doing it every morning take?
I'm doing Pimsleur, which is half an hour of like speak and learn Italian. How do you say, where is Piazza San Marco? Dove Piazza San Marco? How do you say, but? How do you say, no thank you, but I would like to drink something. But not now. Later. How do you say,
mean?
Are
you doing this with Sharon?
No, on the phone. What? Like Sharon is my teacher. No, I'm doing it on an app. I'm doing it on my phone.
As a native Italian speaker, it makes sense.
Yeah, but she's not an Italian teacher. Well, yeah, I'm trying it out on her later, so that's fun. I'm like picking up the odd bit, but no, Italian. I don't think speaking a language makes you. Sharon, I need you not to do anything for half an hour each morning and teach me Italian instead. Maybe not.
I don't understand why that's such a ludicrous idea.
Because you got to get ready for work. Sharon, please pause your life for half an hour every day. No, I would not do that to Shaz. Also, she's not going to have a well-structured Italian training course. Sorry, I'm doing a sort of... Oh, my God, how could you say something so ridiculous?
Stupid.
I can't believe you've done this. Anyway, whatever. Let's talk about subjects.
Well, Nick's learning Croatian, obviously.
Yeah.
And I am not teaching him Croatian, of course.
Why would you? That would be mad.
But I do participate in the practice.
Sure. Exactly.
But he went and dropped off because he goes to Croatian lessons twice a week, and he did nursery. He started to do more nursery drop off and talking to the ladies at nursery, and they were like, "What? You go and have a lesson in Mirza? What's wrong with Ivanka? She's a bad wife."
Jeez.
For not teaching you Croatian.
Well, now you're armed with my response, and you'll be able to very quickly shut them down.
Well, no more than I would I mean, I didn't let Nick come anywhere near teaching me how to ski.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not going to work. Let's face it, it's not going to work. Like teaching a language is very different to speaking it. It's like, well, you should just know. Why don't you know how to drive? Are you an idiot? I can drive. Like that's just going to turn into that, right? I can ski. Why can't you ski? System change versus personal change. What's so personal changes? You've done quite a lot.
I have made quite a lot of personal changes. I'm not sure that they were all specifically or are specifically around in response to plastic, or it's just a general not wanting to have as much impact on the planet.
Yeah.
The kind of changes we've made, or I have been making over the last 20 years, because it has been a long, slow journey, only ever getting my power from a green energy provider. There have been periods where I couldn't reduce my flying, so I didn't consider it because I flew a lot for work. But generally, buying organic vegetable delivery boxes, having the milkman deliver milk, whatever, buying less, trying to buy more secondhand, just generally choosing and opting out of buying a bigger house because I had more money, but rather generally choosing to keep to not have a life of increased consumption, but rather balancing out, okay, so I'm earning more money, maybe I can work less, maybe I can spend more time doing other things. So just basically making some lifestyle choices, including around diet, not eating as much or hardly any meat, thinking about the cost of a thing, not just being, I can get a tin of beans cheaper there, but rather where's that tin of beans come from, who made it, how much, what sort of packaging, blah blah blah, all those kind of decisions that
personal awareness,
just personal awareness. And so I think so I am one of those people that has been
of those people.
One of those people.
So I know you've done more in some areas, and I'm kind of like, just after hearing George Monbiot say, look, it's your flights and your diet, and beyond that, it's institutional. So I've kind of taken that to heart. And I mean, I didn't change my diet for environmental reasons, but I am now smug about having changed my diet because of the environmental impact. So
obviously, any excuse for smugness.
I feel, you recycle. I mean, if you're not, it's funny, I think that sort of difference between being at work and being at home is a problem, because, I don't know, you sort of hope that offices recycle the plastic boxes you get every day to have lunch, but I've got a feeling they just go. I've got a feeling that's where a lot of the landfill comes from. And I did hear there was a YouTuber, can I find his name? Someone saying a lot of this is, we do a lot of good stuff at home, but actually at work is where a lot of this change needs to happen. Really, they don't have the recycling set up, or they just got the air conditioning blasting all day, and it's.
But I mean, there's even this strong recommendation that if we were all to move to a 4-day week, we would have a massive impact on our carbon footprint as humans, or working from home, not having offices, because you're just creating two places that need to be serviced. It's wasteful.
Well, and this is the thing. It's it's interesting how many of the institutional changes that are needed are political. We should, but we would love personally, give me a 4-day week. Let's stop capitalism in its tracks and stop wealth inequality and this horrible poverty situation. But that's something we all want. But the politics of it, the institutions there are just, they can't reconcile that sort of change with how they operate.
UBS is moving to a 4-day week. So Wellcome Trust, big big organisation, a London only, but still. UBS moving to a 4-day week.
What's
There's
UBS?
That bank.
It's the
big
bank. Yeah,
investment bank thingy.
It's just UBS, Swiss. Okay.
But
so
if you start seeing some big organisations changing their habit, that immediately has a big impact, and it signals to other people that it's doable and that it can work. And inevitably, all these things that are good for the climate are also good for us humans.
Yes.
You know, it's like just
trees are nice.
Trees are nice. Yeah. Eating well is good for you. Not walking instead of driving, or cycling instead of driving. These are all things that sort of like, actually, if institutionally these changes and these expectations were to live a climate friendly life, people would be feel better as well. But they can't happen. Like you on your own, cycling to work, taking your packed lunch, it's good. But that's not to say you shouldn't do it. That's the other thing. I saw Claire Farrell from Extinction Rebellion. There was a video going around of her being on Sky News, and she was I mean, and I agree with her. It's like all these personal changes are really important and good, but without the systemic change. And I think that's part of my sad day the other day. Was the fact that I was like, we know this. What are we waiting for?
There is so much stuff we have known, and you just sent that video to me the other day of some kids have done like a sort of rap song about saving the world, and it was like, okay, it's cute. It's like it's the stuff we've known for 30, 40 years. It's the same stuff. It's the do your recycling, cycle, walk to work. Clearly, everyone knowing this is not solving the problem, and institutional change is needed. But we need to figure out what it is that's these machines. How do you disrupt them enough that they take notice? Because it is interesting. It's amazing when you hear about businesses making changes like that. I didn't know that like such big companies were starting to do this.
Well, I saw it on Twitter. The other thing, I mean, going back to we've known this for 30 years. You've brought up this example before. Is the fact that the first episode of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air had this whole green planet global warming thing. And somebody put that on Twitter the other day. It's like I've gone to watch some telly to sort of get over the world and have a break from how shit it all is. And he said, I've gone to watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air episode 1. I'm like, we've known this for so long, and we're not doing anything. We're just in total denial. Well, it's not even denial. I think it's blatant disregard.
Well, it's just not compatible with the goals, with the GDP mentality, right? Ultimately, it's that GDP growth thing that will not let governments legislate around like this sort of climate control, that kind of subject, because everything is so bound up with like we've just got to create value for shareholders. We're not, and nothing else matters.
But what I don't understand, the thing that drives me insane and makes me want to actually physically makes me angry is the fact that these shareholders are human beings. They're not living on a different planet. Their children will also be living on this planet, just like my child, just like everybody else's. It's like this idea that you can somehow separate what's good for shareholders from what's good for humans is ludicrous.
It comes down to a fun, because you speak, the last lot of investors that I spoke to, where I was like in a room with people that had money to back sort of projects like this, they were all like, Amazon Smile. By the way, Amazon Smile can go fuck itself. Like, Jeff, where's the pay your goddamn taxes button? Like, oh no, if you buy things through Amazon Smile, then we'll give back some money to the world. Just pay your taxes. Anyway, like there'll be like Amazon Smile, we want to do like social impact projects. We'll want to do. So they're all thinking about this, but I think there's a human ability to just have two completely contradictory sets of behaviours that you don't connect. You don't realise that one is completely undermining the other. So is the answer like, how do we connect? How do we bridge those cognitive dissonance? How do you kind of try and go, look, this belief that you're very earnest about, my money must go up, but this belief, I want a good world for my children. Have you noticed that they're not talking to each other? You start letting them talk to each other.
But I mean, you don't have to be the investor sitting in the room to not be able to make that connection. Like, it's on a human level. People just go about, but I've got to go about my business. Yeah, but your business. It's like here, there's one of the dads works for Shell.
Yeah,
and I'm like, I understand you're going off and you're earning, a shit ton of money, coming home to your little Adriatic island, but you're working for Shell.
Yeah.
You've got your how are you reconciling that with living on this Adriatic island where we're seeing like my neighbour put his nets in the sea the other day overnight, and Nick went with him to haul it out, and they literally got maybe a kilo of fish.
Right.
And he should have, with the size of his net, he should have had like enough to take to market. There's just no creatures in the sea.
Oh my
there
God.
You know what I mean? It's like, and it's living more rurally. The effects of climate change as already are very much more apparent than in an urban setting. I've said it before, but I think it's so I don't know how people join up these this summer the weather's really bad and it's been raining every day. I don't understand how come it's like this. Anyway, I'm off to work for Shell.
Yeah. There's that desperation. There's that feeling that like the people you hear talking about earnestly about climate change aren't the people that are working 3 jobs. Right, they're not. That's not the same people. So, and that really comes back to inequality, universal basic income kind of discussions. But like it does feel like if I can't make ends meet, I'm not going to start like trying to choose the more
which is why it has to be systemic change. It cannot be. We can't. I am on that note. I had on the subject of poverty. I had my newfound. I will pick people up on stuff on Twitter. Yeah. I had this week with all the Boris Johnson. I refuse to call him Boris. He's Johnson. All that nonsense. A bunch of British charities have written to the government formally and said, can we have some emergency money for no deal Brexit, to feed the people in this country who are already hungry and can't afford food. Yeah. So I shared this because the person that shared it was a woman who works for Sustain, the charity that talks about sustainable food. And then I had someone come in and she goes, oh, but, what we need to address is the fact that, these parents are feckless. They have children that they can't feed. My friend was on benefit for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, this whole, I'm not entirely convinced she's a real human, I have to say, because of, she seems a bit botty to me, in that sort of, or deliberate troll.
Yeah.
But I was like, the thing is, even if what you're saying is true, but you're not basing any of your conversation on data, you're basing it on my friend, he's from abroad and he's just here taking our taxes or whatever. I was like, in your scenario, if what you're saying is that if a mother can't swim, we should let her child drown. Like, it's not there's
the narrative of the lazy poor person is look, you've got people that are either working harder than you can imagine and barely getting paid for it, or just defeated. And that's a systemic problem. Like the fact that people just find, people are claiming mental health. Yeah, if you're not, there is an increase of mental health problems because of the system that we're in, and the way that people can't get paid for their labour. The value for people's labour isn't coming back to the people. It's going to someone that doesn't need it instead.
And a lot of these people that are going to a food bank, this is in work poverty as well. This is like not being paid enough, because going back to those shareholders, there's been that other thing that's been shared recently when Nestle have said we can't possibly afford to sell chocolate where we've guaranteed no child slavery has been used in the production of the chocolate, right? And you remember that talk for that Tony's Chocolonely company from Dutchland. They were like, that the cost would have to be passed on to the consumer. On what planet is it okay to have children labour for you for free or work for you full stop because shareholders?
That is on our planet right now, and that's evil. The problem, right?
That is truly evil. And this idea that those children somehow should slave so that my child can eat chocolate. It's poison anyway.
And also, the offensive idea that our margins cannot be sacrificed. We need all of that money because we need to just have loads and loads and loads of money. Otherwise, we just need it. Like, I've got a lot of cars right now. Like, it's going to be a problem for me if I have to, like, eBay one of my cars. I just don't have time to sell anything. So I'm just like, I just can't think about that. Like,
no, it's awful, awful, awful. That's the kind of systemic change that I think we're talking about. We're talking about, organisations growing a fucking conscience and acting on it. Shareholders, what the hell are you doing? Demand that the companies you're taking money. You can be profitable and be human. Like, you don't have to be.
The trouble is, once it starts being money, it's very hard to. It's like you come back to that property of money that it's very hard to argue with it. It's very hard to ignore that. Like, all other measures seem so sort of. Yeah, if only we had some hard way of measuring more than just money. Although in Dubai they've got a minister of happiness now. It's interesting that even Dubai is realizing that. Well, I suppose Dubai being a chronic sort of like it's all about money place, them having to realize that money isn't everything and like there are other measures. So they've sort of gone to happiness. And I don't know what else. Like, this is off one conversation. I've done no reading on it. But I think people in the world, like, you read Kate Raworth as well. I'm trying to, like, read that in earnest now as well. And just the fact that, like, GDP was just introduced semi-frivolously, like, after a wartime situation in the Depression or whatever. It's like, okay, well, the president wanted to show that there was improvement based on these things. But now it's turned into, it's the only measure. Institutions. But institutions do have KPIs, Facebook likes. That's a good one.
Well, we do. We do like we'd like measures and scores, don't we? Humans.
Yes.
We do. There's no doubt about it that we like these kind of comparators and comparisons and.
Well, I have to say, I also read the Paris Agreement this week. Because, I've had some review from that video, and it was like, the Paris Agreement isn't all. It does have incentives, but it just sort of says, you can incentivize. But a lot of the Paris Agreement is about measuring your impact and reporting your impact. And when I read that whole plastic document, it was all about how can we measure this? And the problem of measuring environmental impact is not a solved problem. It's very complicated, and it's very hard for if everyone agrees that they're going to reduce their CO2 emissions, it's like, well, I don't know. And there's all this stuff about they keep going on about double counting in the Paris Agreement, and it's sort of fixated on that to the point that it doesn't really have any. And the other problem with the Paris Agreement is it doesn't have any penalties for failure to reach your quota. It doesn't have any it's just okay, you didn't do it. There's not really, no one really wants any sort of sanctions or anything if you don't meet it. So it is quite toothless. But I was interested. It was interesting how much of it was fixated on the problem of measuring, on actually measuring it.
But I don't know what you either have to go on faith or on measures. I don't, I don't know how else you can.
No, it has to be measures, but it's just like that's a it's not easy.
Then the idea of understanding the impact of, there's lots of things people do. There's still lots of debate about what's the best source of energy that's not from fossil fuels. Yeah. So you've got this I think it's again wizards versus prophets, but it's nuclear versus. It's always seen as versus, and I've never been averse to nuclear just because it's nuclear. I remember having a debate on the street years ago. Someone trying to get me to sign a anti-nuclear power petition, and I was like, I don't know if it's going to stop CO2. We're going to need something, and I'm not sure that I don't know enough to sign that petition. But I think this.
Have you seen Chernobyl yet? We haven't watched it yet. I'm still a bit scared.
Everyone's saying it's amazing, but I have not seen it yet. But I think this, the measuring thing, it is very hard to know what to measure. And I think measuring the wrong thing could potentially have a very negative effect, like measuring getting plastic straws out of the sea.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yes, we do need to do that, but that's not going to save us. Those the UN sustainability goals.
Sure.
Aren't they quite a good rounded measure?
I mean, they're sort of like, they're nice icons for your sort of mission statement, and to sort of, I think qualitatively they're nice. But like I did say, like when I had my UN sustainability goals, I did my tech day thing, I talked to everyone all day, I had my post-it notes, and then when it came to putting everything in a spreadsheet and going, okay, well, let's put these all against each sustainable development goal, it was like, these goals are a bit, I'm not finding them that useful for categorization of different people's worries. And that kind of surprised me, because there was, maybe I can find the document and kind of flesh that comment out a bit more. So I've got this big list of things that people sort of had put on post-it notes. So some of them were like ideas, some of them were just worries. So we talk about like... stop deforestation. Okay, that's climate action. What happens to my recycling? That's climate action. Global warming. Micromanagement is in decent jobs and economic growth. Mental health, good health and well-being. Self-care, time and space, good health. Uganda, Rwanda startups, industry, innovation and infrastructure. I'm looking at this now. Maybe it's not too bad. I think I sort of noticed that I kind of wanted there to be mental versus physical health, but maybe that's not that important. But also, like, refugee stuff, I couldn't see how to categorise except under reduced inequalities. And then, like, find new owner for your old stuff, responsible consumption and production, I suppose. Ageing population, more love, sustainable cities, communities. I don't know. I think maybe my problem was more that it was just, like, spread out across all of them. And I didn't see one that looked bigger. So that's weird, right?
But that illustrates the complexity of the problem.
Well, what's interesting, like in terms of sustainable development goals, is that the environment is only really kind of one or two of them, and there's a lot of other ones. But I think what we're saying, like the reason I voted for the Green Party in the European elections last time round was, it's not a single issue thing. It affects absolutely everything. It's institutional change, and actually having that one focus, in the same way that it's easier to learn how to do, like learn science if you're trying to solve an actual problem. it's probably better to try and make institutional changes if you can always bring it back to this climate goal.
Yeah. And the worst thing about it all is that success in this context is going to look like not too bad. Do you know what I mean? Like 1.5 degrees is inevitable.
Yeah.
And so, like it's going to be very hard to go, hey, look,
we've done it. It's slightly worse than it was before, but not much worse.
So it's okay.
Brexit hasn't even happened yet. What are you all worried about? Climate change hasn't even happened yet. Why are you all complaining about it and talking about it so much? Can't wait for that line.
Well, I think I don't think it's true. There was a thing on Twitter somebody shared about, which was a mock-up from a 2014 French documentary saying, look, this is what a weather forecast for central France might look like in 20 years' time. And this summer's weather forecast exceeded all of those numbers.
Oh, God.
On that. It was actually like... So all the climate science predictions were out of the... were like wildly underestimating. So, it's pretty... I think going back to what you were saying there, like how do we kill the cognitive dissonance, and how do we make people understand, these institutions understand that, that bit of profit is limiting your child's ability to survive. There's going to have to be a bit of like smashing it up one way or the other. But I think it is getting smashed up.
It is getting, certainly it's under threat, isn't it? It's and also like we do see that, the whole kind of branding industry is all about, like, so much of it for a while now has been about like appearing to be doing good. So whether that's greenwashing or it's actually true, I think it's a lot easier to greenwash than to actually make systemic change and actually follow through on your promises. Like, we'll see how long, what was it, this bank lasts. Hopefully it can do it.
Well, I don't see I don't see why not. One of the things I listened to this week, which gave me some, I don't know, it voiced something that I feel a little bit. I listened to this interview. So Russell Brand talking to Brené Brown.
Yes.
Did I send you that?
You mentioned it last. The last one, but
and I've now got all the way through it.
Yeah.
And one of the things she was talking about was the fact that a lot of what we're seeing, I hope I'm not repeating them from last podcast. A lot of what we're seeing are like the death throes of the white male patriarchy, and the capitalist system. There has to be a backlash from them because they are losing their footing. And,
we're seeing the backlash. Like, that's what Trump is.
I think that's Trump, Johnson, Bannon, Farage, all these people being anywhere. I mean, but Steve Bannon being interviewed by Radio 4 Today's programme. I mean, what are they?
What was that? When was? I just hate
that was this week.
Radio 4 can just die, as far as I'm concerned at this point.
But it was like giving these people any form of platform. When, they could have had Rushkoff on. He would have been interesting.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? He's a human. He's a thinker. He's knowledgeable. He's educated. He's a human.
Yeah,
he's a human. It's like...
Because Bannon's basic belief is that everything needs to be smashed in order to be rebuilt, and his goal is to destroy the system. But I don't know what his goal is. His goal is just to rebuild it as what? Like, we don't know anything about that, do we? It's just make it back into a white supremacist thing again. What is that? It or is it? Is the thing that you're trying to smash the increasing awareness that there are lots of different kinds of people that need to be thought about, and there are a lot more stakeholders than you thought before? Is that what you're trying to destroy by destroying everything? Because I'm not sure you're going to win that battle. I think I don't know.
I more and more think that even the attacks that we're seeing online, against on attacks on Greta Thunberg and talking about her being a deeply disturbed young lady and all these kind of things. And it's like, why?
She is disturbed.
She is disturbed.
She should be.
Because
That's
she's terrified.
That's the whole point. You should be disturbed.
Why can't we all be better like Greta? Why can't we all be a bit better like Greta? Why can't we all be better like Greta? Why can't we all be better like Greta? Why can't we all be a bit better like Greta?
God damn it.
Everybody should be. It's like, and I just don't think. I think that the techniques that that they have are, even with Cambridge Analytica and those kind of success stories, those techniques are techniques of control. And I think we are becoming, as a worldwide society, more aware of those things,
Yeah,
and we're less afraid.
Yeah, and we don't like dishonest people. Nobody likes dishonest people. So when it comes through that you've been kind of mucking about, manipulating things, people aren't going to all agree to let you do it. Forget about that plan.
No.
So as you can only sustain it while it's in secret. But sorry, you can't do this stuff in secret. Well, and it's just the frustrating thing for me still comes back to Trump giving speeches where he talks about how the left are trying to divide us. How even just adopting fake news as something that wasn't the thing that he was fundamentally relying on. Just kind of hijacking the terms that should be taking him down and using them to attack his opponents in a way that makes no sense, but it sounds superficially good to people that want to agree with him, that like his sort of underlying core of racism and nastiness and kind of blame mentality.
Well, there's been an interesting thing on that very topic in the Washington National Cathedral Church of Presidents, whatever they. So I've mentioned Catherine Hayhoe before, the climate scientist that I like to follow. Part of the reason I like to follow her is because she's a Christian and she gives me a kind of line of arguments that I don't know enough about. But she quoted from this article and she says, "We have come to accept a level of insult and abuse in political discourse that violates each person's sacred identity as a child of God." That is the quote from this cathedral thing. And she's like, this is what it looks like when Christians' beliefs are based on the Bible rather than political ideology. And it's this political ideology infiltrating. It's like the woman that I was arguing with on Twitter telling me that if the state looks after the children, then the parents have no incentive to look after their own children and not be feckless. I'm like, what you're presenting to me is an ideological argument and that's it. And I can't argue with you because fundamentally our ideology is different. So for you to argue that Britain can't afford to feed these children is bullshit. So let's remove that. And why don't you admit that you fall into the gang of people who think that if somebody's child's drowning and its mum can't save it, then you let it drown, because that is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, you're ignoring so much, and the fact is, you could show very simply that wasn't true just by measuring and looking and asking people and talking to people, but people aren't making those arguments in good faith, I don't think, or they've adopted something from someone that wasn't giving them stuff in good faith, or it's just wrong. But it's they turning things into unassailable beliefs that become part of their identity, that become part of your identity is a way that you just people can't talk to you anymore.
No, you can't. I on a similar note, And we will get back to how to solve this, maybe,
Well,
or maybe
I
we
don't
won't. I was looking, so Claire Farrell was on Sky News, and then The Express covered it. So I clicked on the Express link and read the article. Immediately underneath it was climate change, human-caused climate breaking. So I'll read it. Just in. Climate change bombshell. Humans are not, capital letters, to blame for global warming, claims shock study. Right?
Right.
So that's just under the interview, Claire, the write-up of the interview. So I click on the article, and the article is about how some scientists wrote a paper to say that global warming was to do with the planet, the Earth moving closer to the sun, which was totally discredited. So the article itself is about how the thing was discredited.
Yeah.
Yet the headline is, and we know people don't read. I mean, never mind the fact that who gives a shit whose fault it is. We've got a problem. It's like that's how they choose to cover the story. It's criminal.
It is criminal. Like, well, I think
It is
Radio
criminal.
4 is in that realm these days as well. It's not just tabloids. It's. I don't understand when the BBC became this completely amoral organisation that does not seem to be interested in its responsibilities anymore, let alone it's not even commercially driven. Like, and then of course, I can understand why the commercially driven ones would sort of start going down to this lowest common denominator clickbait because of capitalism, but I just cannot understand how a sort of state-funded, like in TV license-funded thing that does not need to advertise is still doing all those same things. Because I guess they think they've got to compete for attention in the same way as everything else does.
I think a lot of their programming is good. I think it's the news. There's still lots of good TV on there that is responsible and has cover, but I think it's just the way they're giving airtime to controversial characters that it's like we get taught in school, if someone's being horrible, let's not play with that person until they sort themselves out. And what they're doing is going, hey bully, come, let's make you head of the class.
Yeah. So going back to institutions.
Oh yeah.
Basically, the problem is the machines are winning. Like, it's not Terminator, but it is a machine has taken over.
Yeah.
The sort of GDP, growth economy, capitalism. And I think on the one hand, have I said this on podcast? Like, I think the good thing about capitalism is that in theory, it doesn't have the same human prejudices. So it does give people that are more marginalised maybe a slightly better chance than what came before it. So like capitalism itself, like just kind of deferring to sort of a number thing and not kind of having, oh, well, no, you must be a gentleman in order to trade in biscuits, although no non-gentlemen are permitted to trade in biscuits. But the fact is, it's an inhuman machine. It doesn't care about us at all, and it is not interested in looking after us.
No.
So it's not robots stalking through a barren landscape blowing us up, but we have been enslaved. Literally.
Yeah.
We have literally been enslaved to this sort of like inhuman force. And it's destroying everything because all it cares about is that one thing. And people have Stockholm syndrome. Like, people are brought into it.
They have.
Like,
totally.
so many people will defend it. But one way I think might be good to talk about it, rather than like, because overthrowing capitalism, let's face it, well, it sounds stupid. It's very easy for like rich white people with posh accents to go, you just don't understand the ramifications, you don't even understand how stupid you are, kind of thing. But if we could agree that it has some bugs, that it is not perfect, then maybe that would be a way to start sort of making some institutional change. Like, can we fix one or two of the bugs in it? Like, is this right that 1% of the population has 99% of the wealth or whatever it is? Does this look right? Is our system broken? Or are we all happy with this?
Yeah. But I think that's the system change that we need. But we need to all. So I think I was listening to probably The Guilty Feminist, and that actress Francesca Martinez, she describes herself as a wobbly woman. She's got that I can't remember what the disability is, but she's got a speech impediment, and she's not fully in control of all her muscles. I don't know how to describe it. I don't know what she's got, but she's disabled. But I was listening to I don't know what I was listening to her, and she was like, a massive act of civil disobedience in this consumer capitalist society is to just be happy with who you are. So not have that broken system that doesn't care about us insist that we need, beach ready bodies and the must have skirt for this season and that next upgrade and whatever the hell else it is that's enslaving us into a system that doesn't work for us. It's like, just be happy with exactly who you are. And that in itself, it would be a massive act of civil disobedience.
And this is what the people who the guy that is measured as the happiest person ever, it's all about acceptance. Like, happiness is about being in the present and accepting the world. Like, I struggle with that because, but I'm also doing it. Like, I come into this building, like in the studio, it's above a youth centre. It's a bit like the central heating doesn't work, like the lift's broken, like the kitchen's a bit grubby. It's like, it's not quite the standard to which I am accustomed. It's especially contrasted with like Hotel Tonight's office, which was this like pristine snack bonanza, all the different coffees you can imagine, everything nice and clean, monitors for everyone, cables for everyone. Like there's an there's a VR helmet in the corner, and there's a chill out room with a little book and some tissues so you can cry. I'd quite like to have a bit more of that, but what stops people accepting their situation? What is the sort of like
it's very easy to accept your situation if your situation is in that that 50 grand a year plus that I've got enough. The thing, I completely understand why somebody who is living in poverty, below the poverty line, near it, struggling, why they want stuff and why they should want to fly on. It's like, when do I, hang on a minute, we're going to stop flying before I've even had a chance to fly? That doesn't seem fair. You lot have used up all my carbon footprint for flying on holidays. I want to go on holiday. I want to go to Australia. I want to see, and it's like, and I think this always comes back to solving inequality, always, because the people that they're like, going back to what you said at the very beginning, the anchor point for this conversation is let's decide, let's agree that 1% of the population being richer than all of the rest of us put together is a bug that needs to be fixed. If I am still struggling to work out what to feed my kids tomorrow, I ain't got time to engage my brain with that kind of problem. I don't really care. Yeah, look, but if you take down Amazon, where's my 0 hour shitty contract going to come from? Because right now, Amazon's all I've got. And I don't want you to take down Amazon because I need Amazon, because at least I get some work from Amazon. Why would I join in?
Not to derail this, I read an article about it, because John Oliver did an Amazon sort of takedown thing, like about the terrible working conditions in the factories. And I read a very articulate piece about how good a job. It felt like it was actually a really nice place to work, and it fostered all these different things, like you're working with different types of people, and like it really sort of like broke down the kind of like no you should hate Amazon thing a little bit. Yes, it's disgusting that they don't pay taxes, but like it's a shame that that's the best that you can aspire to, like your Amazon job.
That's what we need. Why would if you've not had a job or you've struggled or you've been on, who am I to tell you that your job's shit or you can't do it? That's not understanding the. We need, with all the 99% of us need to be in a position where we don't have suffer from in-work poverty. We've got reasonable jobs that are working reasonable hours. That means we've got the brain space to think about this shit.
Yeah, and the trouble is, like, the fact is, you need, not me particularly, you need white, posh-sounding men in government to be feminists and to be eco-warriors. You need those people that have the power to make the change, because no amount of underdog complaining is going to make that change unless you actually literally kind of manage to find a way to do violence, although I think that's harder and harder now because the buildings are quite well guarded. Like, I think
we can't do the French
we're probably going to struggle.
We can't do the French Revolution.
We can't. It's too late for that. So the only thing we can do is get these people that do have the power to make the change. And, like, I mean, the good thing about that is there's not so many of them. But the bad thing about it is they're very hard to get to, and they've got a lot of people wanting things from them day in and day out. So I think the key to this is, I mean, the people in power have to change, because honestly, but then, like, just seeing AOC in Congress is just, I love watching her. Like, whenever I see, like, her talking there, she's got her detailed notes and she's got examples and quotes and all this data that she just gives to these people that are used to just not having to. She does have bloody homework, and I think, you know, like, get more people like that in those places as well. And, like, government is different to business. It does attract, hopefully, people that aren't completely fixated on that kind of number. They are, a lot of them, even if misguidedly hoping to help people and be sort of people to like them, I suppose. The key to this is we need to keep... I don't know, that's tricky. We spend enough time showing people in power how much we don't like them, and it seems like they just have to sort of ignore it after a certain point.
See, I've got it.
Right.
Listening to you, you reminded me of of two things. I have this week, another thing I watched was Rick Mayall's address to, because he got an honorary doctorate from Exeter University.
Yeah.
And he made 5 points. Only three of them have stayed in my head.
Yeah.
The first is that we are all equal, all men. He used the word men, which obviously I flinched at. All humans are equal, and therefore nobody is ever your superior.
Yeah.
That was one point, which I 100% agree with. The other is that change is a constant in life, and that, you know, never use your wisdom. You know, your change is a constant. That's it. But the last one was love is the answer. So all those poor boys that are now in power, whose mummies sent them off to boarding school at 3 and broke them, and I've almost finished reading The Body Keeps the Score, and I'm more and more concerned with childhood. We need to get them all in, just give them so much love.
Okay, right.
That they are healed. We just need to not hit at them with hate. We need to not hit at them with offensive commentary. We just need to just love them.
Well, we need 10 eco-feminist love units for every one whinging hate unit. And maybe we could start to turn them around that way.
It's just like, that's the answer.
Okay,
the answer is love.
Let's start that campaign. Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, you can go to grandpodcast.com and subscribe there, or subscribe in the app in which you are currently listening. If you are listening in an app or whatever, I don't know, it's your life. Where can people find you, Ivanka?
People can find me at Ivanka on Twitter, where I'm loving everybody.
Loving everybody. You can find me at michaelforrestmusic.com.
Handing out love.
You can find me at michaelforrestmusic.com, although goodtohear.co.uk, kinda, blankstate.org, kinda. I've got a new app idea, by the way.
Oh yeah.
The next evolution of happiness. Maybe I'll do that as the start of the next episode. I'll explain that. Well, if you like the podcast and you want, like, it's going to keep going. Like, we're not going to threaten you by saying if you don't support us, then we're going to stop. We like doing it, but it does cost billable hours. So we do have a Patreon, which is at patreon.com/grandpodcast. You can be like the second person on there if you want. We've got Shaz and we've got Annette as an honorary Patreon supporter. So come on. Look, I'm being transparent here. I'm not going to pretend that we've got loads of secret supporters. We've got like one, and it's my girlfriend. This is weird in itself. But just help us. Even if you just do $1, then that sort of starts to create some social proof, which is a way. If people see that 10 people have supported something, they'll be like, oh, maybe I should support it. So you can, if you're one of our early listeners, it's not going to cost you anything really. You're not going to notice. And if you do listen every week or like every few weeks, then it's not much, is it? Anyway, well, if you don't want to spend money, there's other things that might be helpful.
Oh yes, if you could write us some reviews. There's star ratings, doesn't matter what platform, where. If you could, that would be marvellous, because it helps us fight the system. And also, if you could tell your friends maybe, or share the podcast with some other people, or just subscribe them. Yes. That's really all it takes. A couple of subscribers. If everybody introduced one of their friends to the podcast, that would be amazing.
That would be quite the pyramid scheme and a coup for us. So please, if you would. All right. Well, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.